Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Pleasant good afternoon, morning, evening, depending where you are in this wonderful world. Hope everybody's having a great day. And thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show today. I'm Robert Starline with Mr. Chris and Davey. And it's an awesome day. And we're a cool 108 for the temperature. And Mr. Davey, what is it out there in SoCal?
Oh, you've got us beat by a good 20 degrees, buddy. It's in the hot, probably about 88 right now. Yeah. Hey, so don't send your weather down here. Hey, I'm looking forward to the interview here in the second part of the show. Some new tech we're going to be talking about.
Yes, it's a gentleman who a lot of our listeners might know, Dr. Tim Quinn, and he's with a company called Ocean Well, and it's going to be a pretty good conversation, so we're excited about that. But first, we got someone else who can keep right up to that, Miss Chris Austin, the purveyor of Maven's Notebook. Chris, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
We're good. How's the weather up in your Central California area?
Hey, we're like at 87 degrees, so it's not too bad. We're enjoying it. We had some hotter days before, but it's a little bit cooler. Cannot complain. They'll have lots of snow melting off the mountains, and I think I heard last week they were going to have to spill out of Oroville because there's, more water coming in than they can store. So, so we've got lots of water. It's melting pretty fast, so we'll see how it goes for later on in the season. But for now, it's, so far so good.
Well, so what's exciting in the world of water in California? I hear they're talking about Newsom's plan to fast-track Delta Tunnel, and what's going on with that?
Well, yeah, Governor Newsom kind of lit a fire under everybody, I suppose, when he proposed a budget trailer bill to fast-track this very controversial Delta Tunnel project that California has been trying to build, well, actually since Schwarzenegger was governor, if you can think back that long. It's a long project. It's undergone at least 3 revisions from in its modern day. It even has roots back decades ago, and it's very contentious. Northern Californians are pretty much against it, and I think Southern Californians, at least the general populace, are pretty much oblivious to it. But the water agencies this week, they came out in force in favor of this Delta Tunnel trailer bill. Now, the thing about a trailer bill is this kind of thing happens in Washington too. The governor can insert a trailer bill into the budget. It can have no budgetary impact, but he can insert this trailer bill in there. And the reason why people tend to do this is because you can just circumvent the whole public process. So there's no committee meetings, nothing will be heard. It just gets sort of inserted into this legislation that everybody has to buy off on in order to pass. And that's how sometimes unpopular things get rammed through. And they do this very same thing in Washington. I mean, you can bet that in this big, beautiful bill, as it's so-called, there's a lot of extra stuff that probably has nothing to do with the budget, but it is just things that people or that the, Congress and senators stick in this large bill, and it's 1,000 pages, and who really knows what's in it by the time it goes up for a vote. I think it's kind of similar in California, but just on a smaller scale. So Newsom proposed this budget trailer bill, and there was immediate outcry, and I think it sounds like, well, it's halfway to not happening. The Senate committee, Appropriations Committee, no on it, but it's, I don't think it's quite dead yet, but it's probably a pretty good indicator that it's not going to make it. The water agencies came out in force, and they've had a lot of commentary, and they're trying to get some support, but they're just not. I don't think they really got much there in the legislature, and so it kind of looks like it's not going to make it into the bill. I mean, it may, but I think this is pretty determinative that that's not going to happen. So that then keeps the Delta Tunnel on its very long, arduous path through permitting that has all sorts of problems. And it's hard to see the end in sight in a way. They have some stuff going on at the State Water Board in regards to this permit that I think are going to be, they're pretty gnarly issues. And while I couldn't tell you how if it's going to be resolved in favor of or not in favor of the project, but it certainly is going to take a lot of extra time to sort out, and probably becomes a potential piece of litigation in the future.
I'd say, Chris, I got one of the things, every day when I open up, I go straight to the Daily Digest, right? So yesterday, I saw this, groundwater thing, Southern California groundwater projects, determine flows on the Feather River. And I go, how they're 300 miles apart. How can that happen? But I guess it's sort of, it's a funding issue, right? So in exchange for funding, then some flows are attributed on the Feather River to the amount of funding. I'm still trying to figure out how it works. So if you can enlighten me, that'd be great.
Oh, sure. This is the Water Storage Investment Program, which was what the voters voted for in Prop 1 to give the money for. Yeah, these projects are very long. They take a long time to come to fruition. So one of the things you had to do in order to get the state money is that some of your project had to contribute to the ecosystem in some way, environment in some way, because our environment is really starved for flows, and we're trying to work that out through various other things, other processes, but for now, there aren't a lot of flows there, and so just getting more in general, is a good thing. So all these projects had to have an environmental benefit. So this program is just one of three that's actually, I think it's in your area. It's in Chino. Yeah. It's called the Chino Basin Program. Yeah. And what they have, the Chino Basin, they had a lot of agriculture and stuff going on there in like the mid-1900s, and they moved that out, but there were a lot of dairies in there, and the groundwater is not, has some water quality issues. So they have to do a lot of treatment on the water when they pull it out for drinking, and they can't use Colorado River in that basin to recharge supplies because right. the water from the Colorado River is too salty. So what they want to do is they want to build an advanced purification facility which is capable of taking sewage and cleaning it up into potable drinking water, and then they want to clean this up this water up, sewage up, very, very clean, and then they want to put that into the groundwater basin to kind of dilute the stuff that's in the basin. So, put in much higher quality water to mix with the lesser quality water to hopefully improve. And they get it's actually a pretty expensive program, but it involves, they got to build this facility, and then they have some pipelines to build. And apparently the city of Rialto has recycled water that they can't use too much or whatever. I'm not exactly sure I understand how that came to be, but they have excess recycled water, so they're going to pipe that over and use that to power this facility, to use in the facility for the purified water. Now, if I remember correctly, when I was out there on a trip somewhere, I think that agriculture uses a lot of the recycled water, and so there's almost like a season where they don't need. I can't really remember. It was many years ago. My mind is failing. Back to how they're going to do this. So in order to get this money to build, that will fund a portion of their project, they had to come up with environmental benefits. So their benefit is, or one of their benefits is to provide pulse flows in Northern California. And the way they do this is they have a state water project contractor. Actually, it's Metropolitan for them. And so through an exchange agreement, they will be able to provide this pulse flow in Northern California. They're not piping the water up there. It's more of a trade. And they don't have to do that every year. It's only in certain years when the state would request it, and it's only for a certain amount. And for that, they get money to help with the building of their project. So,
wow.
Yeah, I love it because some of those headlines get you catches, so they're clever when you do them. Chris, great job.
Explainer, we like that. Anyway, Chris, we're going to go to our commercial break, but we want to let everybody know that you are the purveyor and the master behind, and the creator, the writer, the publisher, the printer, everything for Maven's Notebook. And again, I don't know how you do it every day and every week, but you're an amazing lady. And we love you for that very much. Our listeners, go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber. It's a great way to get updated on everything that you need to know about California water news and things that you never heard about, she'll tell you. And if you'd like to become, a sponsor of that, you give a little donation. You can go to the same website and fill out a form and make her happy, and she'll greatly appreciate it. So, Chris, we thank you very much. We'll hear from you next week, and we're excited to hear everything that's going on with Newsom. Because he's a lot, but we won't talk about anything not related to water. So we'll keep it nice. So, Chris, you have a great weekend, and stay in a nice weather like you got.
Yeah, I hope so.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
Yeah. All right, we're going to take a little break here, and we'll be back with a special guest that we have, and it's about a new technology, pretty interesting. And I think it's pretty scientific, and could help the industry a lot. So stick around. We'll be back in just a moment.
One of the most time-saving tools I found for my customers is our app and our e-commerce feature. So customers actually have the ability to view all of their quotes in one place. If you contact your Site One seller, you'll be able to log into your account and see all your quotes in one place. And instead of jumping on the phone or waiting for your seller to call you back, you can approve it right from the website, and it will send a message to your sales rep to get it on order and reserve the material. Customers can learn more about these tools at their Site One branch, from their local seller, from their local CX specialist, and from SiteOne.com, or by downloading the Site One app.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. I'm Rob Starr along with the astute Mr. Chris Davey, and we have a really good featured guest who actually was on our show a couple of years ago. His name is Dr. Tim Quinn, and he's the water apology strategist for a company called Oceanwell. He's formerly the executive director at the Association of California Water Agencies and deputy general manager at Metropolitan Water District of Los Angeles. Tim is an economist and a visiting fellow at Stanford University who spent over 40 years of his career in water in California, bringing invaluable expertise to Oceanwell. So, Tim, welcome back again to the Water Zone. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks very much.
Now in your new role, and maybe you can tell us a little bit of history about what Oceanwell, for our listeners, what Oceanwell is and what you do, and then we can get into some interesting topics about technology and why this is different than everybody else in the world, because you got a really neat product.
Let me put things in the historical context a bit. But I spent 40 years in California water, 45 actually, and retired in 2018. My career was marked by collaboration. And that sounds odd for somebody that did California water policy, where we are known for fighting over water. Whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. But I was always a collaboration, somebody who tried to get people to not disagree with each other, not go into winner-take-all adversarial processes. And I spent a career in public service. I intentionally chose to be a public servant when I was a young man, because that's what interested me. And at the end of my career, I am now in the private sector, working for a for-profit startup company, and it's really rather an interesting transformation for me. But most interesting because I'm applying those skills at building collaborative coalitions for common policy that makes sense for California and the rest of the world. And I'm using all of those skills I developed in the public sector here in the private sector with a for-profit firm whose business model basically is based on a paper I wrote at Stanford University that argued if you want to get anything done in California water in the 21st century, you better be prepared for an open and transparent collaborative process to build a coalition of support for where we need to go. And that is the business model of Oceanwell. Where Oceanwell comes from, our CEO is a man named Robert Bergstrom, and he is a 25-year veteran of ocean desalination. Robert came from the Midwest, was originally in his career was in finance, but he got tired of that and decided that he wanted to do something that would matter to the globe as a whole. And this was 25 years ago. And he thought water would be the issue of the 21st century. I think he was pretty much right. And he wound up choosing ocean desal. And he went to the Caribbean and started a company called Seven Seas Water, and they became the sole supplier of water to the U.S. Virgin Islands and other Caribbean islands, and they were using what was then the newest technology for desalinating ocean water, which was relatively uncontroversial compared to California. Robert retired and came to California with his wife. He now lives in Culver City, California. But he couldn't resist the call of why doesn't California rely more on the Pacific Ocean? It's right there. Why aren't you doing more? And he soon started to realize why we don't use more Pacific Ocean water in California. That's because the technology for developing desalinated water is hugely controversial. I was Southern California's point person on what we call Bay Delta politics in California water, where the Sacramento and the San Joaquin River come together. It's called the Delta. And I was Southern California's point man, number one man trying to negotiate solutions for that part of the world. I thought nothing could be worse than Delta politics in water. I was wrong. By far the most contentious issue in California water turned out to be ocean desalination. And there have been several major attempts to try and do big desal plants on the coast of California, and they were always bloody battles. Very nice about the San Diego County Water Authority built a plant in Carlsbad, California. I was there the day in 2015 that it was dedicated. I was proud of what they had done. Yep. I didn't really understand ocean desal politics then. And so I think a lot of people expected, well, we'll start building ocean wells. We will start building traditional onshore desal facilities along the coast of California, and that's going to help relieve California's water problems.
Yep.
I don't believe. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I was at that event as well and met the people from IDE and listened to all the things of the 17 years it took them to get it to go and all that hassle and a lot of red tape in that whole situation. And it's they're one of the biggest companies in the world doing that, and they're putting up some smaller ones up the coast and such. But you're right. It really needs new technology and things, and a lot of things that now that Ocean Well is doing is completely different in the sense of how they're going to do it. And I guess the big question is offshore desalination going to solve California's water woes? I personally believe it will. And because, people ask too much electric, you got to power, what do we do with the brine? What do we do with this? Well, it goes on and on and on. And from what I read about Ocean Well, I'm really amazed and excited about it because I think this is a neat little project. We'll get into more of that. But you're right. Like I said, I was there the same day for the dedication down in Carlsbad, and it was an interesting day. But like I said, after listening to 17 years worth of hassle just to get that thing built, it was ridiculous.
And of course, there was a plant a little bit north of that in Orange County called Huntington Beach that was denied permits by the California Coastal Commission. That shook the water industry folks in California to a lot. But what Robert did was he started asking himself, well, why is it so controversial? It wasn't very hard to figure out. Onshore desal plants, well, I think they have a lot of merit, and there's a lot of arguments for them. But you can't argue against the fact that they bring huge volumes of seawater up to shore. They're going to apply very expensive energy, but very energy intensive to move the salt out. That's what's called desalting. You take the salt out of the water once it gets to shore, and you've got this concentrated brine that you have to get rid of, and that's not good for the ecosystem. Certainly, environmentalists don't think it's good for the seawater ecosystem. You got brine coming out. You've got you have serious mortality of organic life coming when the water comes in. Very energy intensive. You're putting a big ugly factory on the beach, which nobody likes. And there were all these reasons why it was so controversial. And Robert got to thinking about how do you deal with that. And he of course he's an entrepreneur and he knows the physical processes of desalting better than anybody I know. And he finally realized that, well, what if you moved where you're doing your desalting from the shore out to the ocean and then down to 400 meters? You go down to 400 meters because that's where the natural hydrostatic pressure of the ocean, that's just the weight of the ocean on itself. It creates at 400 meters down, you have natural pressure of about 800 pounds per square inch, which is precisely what you need to push seawater here at depth through reverse osmosis membranes, and that separates the salts out from the freshwater, and then you pump the freshwater up to shore, and which you do have to buy energy for that. But the reverse osmosis energy is free. It's provided by Mother Nature, and on balance, your energy cost savings are about 40%, and maybe even more important at that depth. There's an ecosystem down there for sure, but it is a lot less organically rich and much less concerned than if you're doing this up in what's called the photic zone of the ocean in the upper 200 meters. So that simple concept of let's do the desalination not on shore but at depth, it unlocked all of the problems we had with technological problems we had with onshore ocean desal. We're doing a lot of testing and science to prove these things out, and they're not proven yet. But it stands to reason there's a lot less mortality because there's a lot less organic things to do. And we also have a technology called our LifeSafe system that is designed to take whatever does get into our RO system and put it back out in anything live, put it back out in the ocean, in the ambient atmosphere, in the ambient ecosystem, where we'll do a lot better. We basically, we're oversimplifying a bit, we don't have a brine problem because we don't create brine in the first place. Onshore desal, you take the seawater with its salt onshore, and then you desalt onshore. We don't do that. We pump only the fresh water up to shore. And the natural pressure from Mother Nature separates out the salts down at depth, and the quite low concentrations where have to figure out exactly how the concentrations are and what happens in those lower ecosystems. But the only thing we're bringing to shore is the fresh water. And we don't bring the 50% that onshore has to put back into the ocean. So we have virtually no brine problem. And of course, the footprint problem on shore, we need about 5% of the footprint that a Carlsbad facility would require. So if you look at, as Robert likes to say, these were all serious concerns that the environmentalists had, and he basically took them as a roadmap for how do I design something that you don't have to go to war over. And we're now building an advisory committee of very respectable environmental organizations from Southern California, and we're listening to them and we're changing our plans based on their concerns. We have one of our newest staff members is a woman named Charming, Evelyn, and Charming happens to be the chairman of the Southern California Water Committee for the Sierra Club, and she's continuing in that role while she works for Ocean Well. The message there being, we have taken very seriously the concerns that were out there about ocean desal, and we're finding a whole lot of people that are saying, well, we weren't against desal necessarily, we just wanted smart desal, not another kind of desal. And I think we're working hard on proving that subsea reverse osmosis, that's our technology, is in fact the first time in history that Californians can get a major source of water supply without going to war with the environmentalists. We can work with them and with each other. And it's a really nice capstone in my career. I'm in my 70s now. I should be playing more golf, although I don't do it very well. I'm finding I'm devoting a little more than half my time to this because I'm passionate about it. It's just this logical conclusion to a career that was spent trying to build bridges between environmentalists and water supply interests, and this technology is adapted supremely well for that goal.
Well, I'll tell you, Tim, this is Chris. Welcome to the Water Zone, or I should say welcome back to the Water Zone. And by the way, you're in good company because Rob and I are also in that septuagenarian group ourselves. But hats off to you for continuing to do that. And look, if I may, Rob, once you mentioned that Tim was on the show a couple of years ago, I actually looked at the database for all the shows, and I have Tim Quinn on the show first, February 11th, 2016. Tim, do you remember that?
I do vaguely.
I do. I think at the time you were the former director, I think, of the Association of California Water Agencies, and
at that time I was the executive director.
Yeah, that's correct, or executive director. Yeah, exactly of that. So see, there you go, Tim. So it's been wow. That was 9 years ago, buddy, and I think Rob only said 2, but. Listen, I want to get back to the science and the technology of this, but kind of an intervening question after talking about how well the company works and the coalition and your background and all that. I mean, you must have built some of those skills while you were with the ACWA or Association of California Water Agencies, and again with when you were working for the California Forest Watershed Alliance too, because that's just a diverse coalition right there. Did that experience, those jobs, that experience, do you think that contributed to your ability to do what you're doing today?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I have stumbled into an opportunity to put all of the skills that I developed over a 40-year career as to listening, stop talking, start listening, be prepared to change your plans because others have an idea that's better than you. All of those things that I did. You mentioned the forestry work. You can't solve the problems in California's forests without a collaborative approach. You've got to get all the people who care in the same room. And amazing things happen when you start listening to people and they know that they can put their fingerprints on a public policy solution. They get really creative. They come up with good ideas. They listen to other people. They start to empathize with people that they never thought they would empathize with before. And I didn't realize there was a collaboration just 30 years ago. It was the only way to get the job done. My bosses kept throwing me into the deep end of the swimming pool. And if you wanted to solve a problem, to do this water marketing transfer, do this groundwater storage program that's horribly complex and politically sharp. You had to do it through collaboration. And so over time, I picked those skills up. And when I was at Stanford, I was, at one point they asked me to be a fellow at Stanford, and I was blown away, and pleased with that. But I said, what the heck is a fellow supposed to do at Stanford University? And they said, pretty much anything you want.
Right.
So I turned my year plus at Stanford into a retrospective on the 40 years of California water policy that I experienced, over which time there was enormous change and improvement in how we manage water. And I came to realize, thinking back on my involvement with that, and I was in the middle of all the important stuff, the most important stuff, I guess. And every time I'd had a major success that I was a part of, there were never Tim Quinn successes. They were always, the best successes are owned by a lot of different people. But every one of them was done through a collaborative process. And I had been a warrior. When my bosses wanted me to be a warrior, I knew who signed the paychecks, and I'd be a warrior. But I couldn't think of a single dang thing that I thought I had accomplished as a warrior in the California water wars. Collaboration was clearly the way to get things done in the 21st century. And that was the essence of the paper. In fact, Robert Bergstrom read that paper, called me out of the blue, and said, I need someone who thinks like you.
Oh, wow, what a great story. Do you still believe, sorry, Rob, I'm going to go back a little bit here. So listen, do you still believe, Tim, that, we've had lots of people on our show that have talked about, the forests in California or in the Western United States and how much of a significant risk that they are, and how that was exemplified in all the fires and all the stuff that we've had in the last few years. Do you still agree with that? Do you still think that there's some, there's lots of things still to do in terms of managing our forests?
Absolutely. We've barely scratched the surface of what we need to do with our forests over the long term. I think we're headed in a much healthier direction today than we were 10 years ago. But we have got so much work to do because there's so much forest that were mismanaged, not by California, by the way. If you want to point fingers at the mismanagers of our forests, you can't leave out the United States government and the United States Forestry Service. We were making mistakes about how to manage forests for 100 years. That created a very large problem. And to solve that problem, we've got a lot of work to do to put the forest back in shape. But what I discovered, it's so complex and there's so many players that can affect policy. The only way to approach it is through a big tent collaborative process. And that's where California is headed, to do those sorts of big tent processes, to pull stakeholders together and say, well, what can we all agree on together? And I'm not close to it anymore. I was very close to it when I was executive director of Aqua, because while we were a water association, we fully understood how important those forests were to California's water supply.
Yeah, well, I think that's some great insight, Tim. And excuse me if I went off the balance there a little bit, but our previous guests have told us how forest restoration is so important to them, to make the forest more resilient and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad to hear that you agree with them. All right, let's get back to the science and technology for ocean. Well, Rob, I think you've got the next question to ping there.
Yeah, I'm the engineering guy. My two passions, Chris will tell you, Tim, is vertical farming. I think that's something that the world should be looking at, and two, desalination technology, and a lot of things. So I have a picture of the modular unit that Ocean Well has, and I guess it has to get inset to a piping system once it gets down X amount of feet. But when you get the seawater intake and it goes through the membranes and stuff, does the membranes have to be changed? And what kind are they steel? I mean, are they metal? Are they carbon? I mean, if they're that far down, divers got to go down in a sub. I don't think they can extend the pressure down it.
Well, you can't. Divers can't work down there. It's too deep.
Right.
But the membranes and the lifespan of the membranes, that's a major issue for us out there. We're still in the middle of our R&D process, and a lot of the tests and the things we're doing as part of that R&D process are designed to answer just that kind of question. How do the membranes perform? How long do they last? So there are still a number of important questions out there that we think we've got a pretty good line on, but we don't have proof yet.
Right.
And so we're working to get that proof. on membranes. And our best guess right now, they'll last about what they do onshore, and that's about 4 years. But it could be 2 years, and it could be 10 years. And we need to find out what the answer to that question is.
Right. Now, you guys are working with Las Virgenes Water, and I think they're looking at a couple of years down the road to be a full facility installed into the ocean there. And so when you look at, what would intrigue me a lot about this is the fact that you can do it with almost 40% less energy. You don't have, you don't put as much brine out, it takes care of all of that. It's a really slick system. I mean, it sounds awesome. And you're right. This should help a lot of people who worry about the environment, because that's always, no matter what you do, there's always going to be a group of people who are going to disagree with whatever you say. And but this is so the Las Virgenes thing. Now they've overcome some water shortages with some rain and some other things, but they still want to find other diversities of how to get clean water. And are they if you can tell us, is that the only local California company that you're working with, or has there been any other entities overseas or any place else that want to try this?
The answer is we are casting our net globally. In California, we really firmly believe in collaboration, and we knew that we needed some sort of public-private partnership with water suppliers in order to be successful. And the one that we found that's just been a marvelous organization to work with is Las Virgenes Municipal Water District in northwest Los Angeles County. They're relatively small, but they're very innovative, and they're willing to take risks. They've been a great partner. But if we're not just working with Las Virgenes, in fact, in 2023, Ocean Well, we visited up and down the entire state, and we created something we call the Statewide Water Group. They're an advisory group to us that has 25 public water agencies that care about keeping up with our process. And then within that group, working with Las Virgenes, we came to the conclusion that the best place for us to start, for us to put water farm number one, there was one set of customers that made more sense than anybody else, and that is agencies that are defined by the Metropolitan Water District as being state water project dependent. These are agencies that can get imported water only through the state water project system, which is unfortunately notably unreliable. In Las Virgenes, it gets all of their imported water from the state water project. And in 2020 to 2022 was the last time we had a real big drought. They were cut by 70–80%, and they were really hurting. But everybody couldn't do anything about it because they couldn't access Colorado River water. So we are working now with 7 agencies that are state water project dependent. They are Las Virgenes Municipal Water District. They're neighbor to the west, Cayugas Municipal Water District. They're neighbor to the south, Los Angeles County Public Works District 29 that serves water to the Malibu area. Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which is proving to be a very constructive and innovative partner. And it turns out the city is not totally dependent, but there are parts of their service areas, particularly in the San Fernando Valley, where the only way they can get water to those customers is through the Jensen plant and the State Water Project. And then we also have members of this coalition that include the Burbank Department of Water and Power, also Upper San Gabriel Valley Municipal Water District, and then lastly, those are all, everyone I mentioned so far is a member agency of the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. Then one agency outside of that service area is the Santa Clarita Valley Water Agency. So we have 7 agencies that now for a little more than a year and a half, have been working very closely together to figure out how can we do the best job for us and for the environment to get water. Where would we want to locate we've labeled it water farm number one, not very creative, but it's accurate. And water farm number one now, our current plan is it would be located about, if you look at Malibu, keep in mind the coast of Malibu, the coast runs east-west, not north-south. And then so if you go perpendicular down from its south, about 4.5 miles, you can get to 400 meters down. So we're looking at a water farm that would be about 4.5 miles south of Malibu. And of course, all of the subsea infrastructure, that's our job at Ocean Well. And we're working hard on figuring out how you would do that, how you would make it as cost effective as possible. And then the 7 agencies that I mentioned, they are all now partnering with each other to figure out, well, once Ocean Well gets the water to a shore crossing near someplace near Malibu, by the way, all these decisions will need input from environmentalists and others before you finalize them, and we're on a path to do that. But then we have the question: how do you get the water distributed to 7 agencies that are inland? And consistent with my experience with collaborative processes, there's just a lot of really creative thinking going on. So we're now thinking that we would be able to deliver water molecules from our water farm at 400 meters down through pipeline that we would construct subsea to a shore crossing, and then from there it would be delivered directly through existing pipes and over time a couple of new pipeline systems. But amazingly little. There's a lot of excess capacity to move water around in Southern California, and that we could deliver water directly to 4 of those agencies: LA, DWP, Las Virgenes, Callejas, and District 29. And the other 3, we would need to work out exchanges. So that would mean we would deliver more water to the coastal agencies like, well, Las Virgenes is not quite on the coast, but it's pretty close. We deliver more water to those direct delivery agencies, and then they would reduce their demands, agree to reduce their demands for Metropolitan Water District water, and that would free up water that by exchange could go to the other 3 customers. Complex, but it makes sense, and we're working hard to make it make sense in Southern California. So we're well down the path of establishing our first water farm in Southern California. We also have promising discussions going on in Europe and in Northern Africa. That part of the world, that's where detail really happens, is to that part of the globe around the Mediterranean, and we want to be a meaningful part of that. And 10 years today, we'd like to be delivering at least 1 million acre-feet of water a year on an international basis, and a significant chunk of that in California and potentially other Western states.
Yeah, as an engineer, I marvel at your technology that you had. You got minimal effects of aquatic organisms with the deep sea location. There's very little sunlight, so you don't have photosynthesis. You don't have a vibrant food chain. You don't have as much marine life. Cold temperatures of the sea reduce biological activities. I mean, and the footprint of your system is small. And I mean, there's so many boxes.
As small as possible.
Yeah, it checks off. It checks all the boxes off against the big competitors who aren't looking at what your guys are doing. I mean, they're looking at what you're doing, but they haven't even come close to that. And that's what intrigues me is, like I said, I have 2 things I like, and one of them is desal technology and with the membranes and all that. And it just intrigues me. And I think what you guys are doing is totally awesome on that. Chris, I'll let you. I didn't mean to ask so many questions. I just love this stuff. So go ahead.
I got a quick one. I'd kind of like to get back into the equipment and technology quickly, Tim. If I can ask you a question. And by the way,
real quickly, I do want to point out there is an ecosystem down there. We're not pretending there's not an ecosystem down there. We want to understand that ecosystem as well as we can and treat it as respectfully as possible with advice from NGOs and others, so we do the job right.
Perfect.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, but so Tim, I was just going to say, I mean, you guys are everywhere right now, right? You're on a lot of podcasts and I see a lot of articles. I think the first time I really got exposed to this was a couple of years ago. I listened to a podcast. I think it was Mike Porter was on there, and that's the first time I'd heard the water farm concept. I mean, explained to me. I'd heard people talk about it, but so congratulations on the exposure you guys are getting. But let me, kind of from an expectation you were saying about, getting these water farms online and getting the technology up and going, it's that kind of a 3-year, 5-year kind of thing. And then right after that, when you answer that, I think I heard somewhere, by the way, Tim, it was like 2028 you were expecting to come online. But when you do come online, what's the expected, full operation volume, and what % of the requirements, for example, can we expect to see?
Well, we will start relatively small, like everybody else, and then we will grow. One of the amazing things about our technology, really is appealing to buyers, is that it's modular. You don't have to build one big plant for the long time future and and incur all those costs. We're expecting that the first water farm we put will be relatively small, 20 to 25 pods. That's about up to 25,000 25,000 million gallons a day, and up to 25 million gallons per day, and then. So we're expecting to have a small farm. We will create pipes for that water and for future supplies and demands, and then we will grow that to right now the water farm number one. We're looking at it eventually going to about 60 million gallons per day, which would make it about the same size, a little bit larger than the facility in Carlsbad. So we're talking about building the largest desal facility in North America in the relative near term. We have charted a course with our partner Las Virgenes for the things we need to be doing and raising money to do to get all of the R&D stuff questions answered. And then it's an aggressive timeline, but I'm one of the people in Ocean World that likes aggressive timelines. They tend to produce value. And we would like to be commercially ready in 2028. But what I mean by commercially ready is we could, without any concern, sign contracts and start construction. We're probably not delivering significant volumes of water until 2030 or so. And again, I want to emphasize that's an aggressive timeline, but I won't let go of it. I won't let go of it until I absolutely have to. I think we will meet that timeline. And then as where it goes, it kind of depends on what people think. I think, and if I'm hearing you right, Rob, I think you agree that this technology is going to be so attractive within the political system of California, not just as an engineering tool, but within the political system of California. We have a democratic system, and what Robert has done is figure out how do I substantially grow the potential economic benefits of desalination, and if not drive to zero, drive down to very small numbers, the negative consequences of operating a desal facility, and make them much less than anything on shore could do, much less than you can do by taking large volumes out of a freshwater ecosystem, which has not turned out to be an easy thing to do. And I think that this will be long after I'm gone, but I think the politics of this natural resource system are going to push everybody in the direction of something that is consensual, that spreads benefits, that minimizes impacts, and so it could in fact become a fairly significant portion of California's water supply. I've been invited to speak in Arizona, where there's interest in doing exchanges with the Metropolitan Water District, where they would agree to pay for desal off of the California coast. That would be water for Metropolitan, which would reduce their need for Colorado River water, and they could release that Colorado River water to Arizona and possibly Nevada. Those are big thoughts that we weren't able to have not very long ago. So the prospects of this are tantalizingly large, although at present we're focused on making Water Farm 1 work. We've got a few things going on around the globe. We want to start small and make sure those small experiences are extremely positive, and then we will go from there.
Well, Tim, I think you got the eyes and ears of a lot of people already. I mean, there's, most people were thinking of desal as coastal desalination, right? But this is a whole new thing. So you guys are certainly on the leading edge of that, and the need for it, right? The fact that there is a water crisis, a critical water shortages, especially in California. So the need's not going to go away. So it's like, you've got your reason for doing it, right?
Yep. And over time, I think you will see movement away from harvesting large amounts of water from freshwater ecosystems, where it does cause problems. And I believe you will find that deep sea reverse osmosis is environmentally enormously superior to any other alternative, and there will be strong political pressure to move in that direction, to supply water that works for farmers, that works for urban residents and businesses and industries, and doesn't have the environmental negatives that we have with our current system.
What happens? I know that some of your scale model commercial units like 40 foot wide by 33 foot tall. How can that help develop further usage in the ocean because of the size? I think that the size that you have is incredible. I mean, to do what you can do with that. Well, how do they have to treat if there's extra treatment of the water that needs to happen, that's done onshore?
Actually, there's very minimal amounts of pre-treatment that has to happen with this technology. One of the problems you have with onshore is you have to use lots of chemicals and other things to treat the seawater because it's got all this salt and life in it, and organic life in it. You've got to treat it in order to put it into your plant. We don't have any of those problems. So there will be very minimal treatment going on. Obviously, you need water quality experts, et cetera, that give you guidance and tell you, and we need to work with the regulators to make sure we're meeting all safe drinking water standards. But I'll tell you, that's not something that keeps me up at night. We will be able to get through that. One of the values of this technology is it doesn't use any chemicals. For the ecosystem, down at depth, it doesn't change the temperature, it doesn't change the pressure, it doesn't put any stress on organisms the way you have it happening on shore. And then we intend to pump up the really very pure, it's so pure you probably have to add some minerals to it when it gets up to shore, up to shore, where it will go through various treatment processes, but nothing extensive, and be ready for use.
Yeah, sure. So, from a savings standpoint, energy standpoint, I think one of the things I was going to ask earlier, and I kind of slipped my mind, was, the offset in contamination, right, from the power required to do that, because you're using the, the power of pressure, ocean pressure. Right. I mean, so greenhouse gas emissions, for example, is what I'm talking about. What, where's the advantage there, and kind of what scale is it?
Well, the main advantage is we use a lot less energy. And so whether you're using carbon-based fuels or renewable fuels, you're using a lot less of them than you otherwise would. In the beginning, we will probably be hooking up to the grid to get a water supply, and there will be some concerns to generate water supply, and there will be some concerns about that. Our goal long-term is to partner with offshore renewable electricity suppliers, and eventually we would like to be 100% offshore renewable. We have no footprint on global warming whatsoever.
Got it. So when you say, offshore stuff, wind turbines kind of stuff you're talking about, because there's technology out there now for wave-driven power generation, that kind of thing is what you're thinking you've got up your sleeve?
Yes, and actually, which one would be best? Can't say. We don't know yet. But one of our long-term goals is to develop renewable energy sources so that we are completely independent of the grid for economic and for environmental reasons.
Tim, I could talk to you for a month on this subject. I love it, and you certainly.
You wouldn't want to out. You'd find, Rob, that don't start Tim Quinn talking about water, because it doesn't end soon.
No, I've been a follower of you for a long time. I'm not stalking you, but I follow you a lot. I just want to clarify that. But no, like I said, I'm amazed at this technology. I have a real passion for it. Even though I don't do that for a living. I mean, I'm in the water industry with Toro, but little different. But I'm just enamored by this. How can people find out more about Ocean Well? I'm sure you have a website, or maybe some videos, and some people can take a look at.
The best thing is just to go to the website. It's oceanwellwater.com, and there you can find out all the players. We got contact information for all of our experts. We're still pretty small. We're only 11 people on this team. I was the Ocean Well employee number 7. There now are 11, and although we're at a stage where we're probably going to have to go through a major growth spurt, but that's all dependent upon raising money and raising investment money.
Well, remember, you have seniority now.
That's true. That's true. Not sure how much credit we'll do me, but yeah, it's true.
Right, and you got to get it when you go in, because they don't give it to you afterwards. So it's always a struggle.
So far, it is just a marvelous place to work. I really enjoy the people I work with. They are extremely bright. They're all dedicated to the cause for the right reasons. None of them are in it to get, as far as I can tell, none of them are in it because they think they're going to get rich. They're all in it because they think this is such a marvelous technology for solving problems that have been bedeviling us for centuries in California.
Well, Tim, we appreciate you coming on, taking time to come on the show, and like I said, I'm excited to talk to you anytime. And if you ever want to come back and talk about some more stuff that you guys are doing, just let me know. And you got the time. I'll make it
I'll,
happen.
I'll agree to do that, and if you invite me, I'll come.
Okay, I appreciate it. Chris, any parting words from you?
Thanks very much, Tim. I appreciate the time and your insights on that. I think it's just a great technology. Rob and I know, we'll be noses to the screen here and following everything that Ocean Well is doing. Best of luck to everyone.
Stick around
Don't
after
hesitate to give me a call if you ever have questions.
No, stick around after the show. We want to talk to you for a sec. And just a friendly reminder to our vast listeners all over the world, that Chris and I do every week, is please help keep our planet blue.
Protecting the future. Houston, 1930.
The KC50 aim